Hey, hi everyone, welcome back. So, guys, as part of this session, we are going to talk about an overview on a Git and as well as a GitHub. So, most of the people will get confused about a Git and as well as a GitHub. Let us, illustrate more about these two things so that we can understand these two in a better way. So, what exactly a Git is? And a GitHub is. So, GitHub, first of all, if you see, basically, it's a web-based platform that provides hosting for Git repositories. So, the various repositories would be hosted on a particular GitHub. So, GitHub is a web-based platform. Okay, GitHub is a web-based platform. That's the first thing that we need to know. Then, what is a Git basically? Git is a robust framework which is used for managing code changes and maintains reliable history of your project code base. So, the point here is so GitHub, I can say that it's a remote repository which you can access on a browser. What about a Git? Basically, this is a software that you need to install in your machine, which is used to manage your code changes. What exactly the meaning of this one is? Let us see a simple example for this. So consider that we are three people working on our projects. Okay, on a single project, three different people are working on a project. Okay, consider that one is in India, another is in a USA, another is in an Australia. Three different people are working at a three different location, and all three are working on the same automation testing. Consider that the person who is in India is working on a people's module, and another person is working on some access module, and another person is working on some settings module. Three different modules, but all are related to the same application. So they have done their code base. So the ultimate point here is your application consists of these three modules, which means that all the three codes should be integrated as a one code. So all the three codes should be integrated as a one code. So that can be handled using a GitHub. So the three people will commit their code into a repository. So that repository is available within this particular GitHub. So they will be creating. So I can say that a project is having a particular folder in a GitHub, which we are calling it as a repository. So a repository means it's a GitHub project basically. In a GitHub repository, basically, a project will have different branches. A branches means a simple folder. The person in India is having one branch who is working on a particular module. Person in UK is having a one particular branch who is having his code in that particular branch. And person in Germany is having another branch. So these three people are maintaining their code in a three different branches. At the end, once they are done with the code, they need to commit their code into a main branch or a master branch so that the master will have a complete set of a code. So what Git does basically, Git, using this, you can commit your changes from your local to the remote repository into your branch. You will be writing down your code in your local. Once this code is written, you need to push that particular code into the remote repository. So that will be handled using this particular Git. Okay, so that will be handled using this particular kit. So how this is going to work, let me show you a pictorial representation of this particular stuff. So what I'm going to do right now, so I just pulled up an online paint for me. So consider that this is my machine. So I'm just considering only one person activity. So this is your machine, and from your machine you need to commit your code into the GitHub, which is a remote repository. So this is a local machine, and from this we need to commit our code into a remote repository, which is a GitHub. Okay, we need to move, okay, whatever the code that you have from here should be committed to this particular area. The same will be applicable for different persons. As said that here there is one repository associated for this particular project. In the GitHub there is one repository that will be created for this particular project. So into that repository itself, we will be committing that particular code. But here, in order to commit these changes from your local to the remote repository, there are multiple areas that we have. The first area that comes here is a staging area, which comes in between the local machine and as well as a local Git. And from the local Git, we will be pushing down to this particular remote repository. So this is the process, guys. So first you have your code in your local machine. This code, whatever you have in your local machine, will be added to the staging area. From the staging area, we will be committing our code to the local repository, and from here, we will be pushing our code from the local machine to the remote repository. This is what the flow is. In future, consider that this one person has committed his code into the remote repository. In future, someone has else also committed their code. We need to get their code. So in such a cases, from the remote repository, we will be taking a pull. So from the repository, whatever the latest code is there, you are taking a pull of that particular remote repository into your local. Okay, into your local. So this is the thing basically. So the ultimate chunk out over here is GitHub is a remote repository. On an individual machines, you have a Git, and using this Git, you will be committing your code into the remote repository multiple branches. Okay, you will be committing your code into the multiple repositories, into multiple branches into a repository, and one will be merging all the multiple codes into a single code. So here, on a high level, what I can say is from your machine into the remote repository, you will be pushing your code, and once there is an update, you can take a pull of that particular code and you can use that piece of a code in the real world. Okay, so Surendra, how this process is gonna work out? So, what are all the various steps involved for this? Ideally, there were about 4 to 5 different steps that were involved in order to commit the code into the repository. So, the first and foremost thing is probably our lead will be doing that: create a new project. Of course, after creating a project, he will be creating a local repository, and he will be adding all files into the local repository, all the files into the repository, and then he will commit all the changes. Okay, and then he will push all the changes, which is a master code base, to the remote repository, which is a GitHub. Okay, which is a remote repository GitHub. So this is the first step that one will be doing, our lead will be doing. He will be creating a project, he will be committing the code into that particular one, and then he will create a remote repository and he will push the code into that particular remote repository. Okay, so once it is done, the next step what it will be doing is he will be informing the team. So consider that there are 3 to 4 people who are working on the project. Once this the first step is done, as part of the second step, inform to the team about the repository and ask them to take a clone. At the very first time, they can take a clone of that particular repository and they can start working on the base code base. At the very first time, see, basically consider that we have 3 people who are working on the project. They don't have this project specific code in that. So he is the one, the lead is the one who configured that code and he committed the code. So that's the reason he will place the code into the remote repository, as and when the team started working at the very first time, whatever the code base is there, they will take a clone from that particular remote repository. And then the next thing what they will be doing is, so the third step basically, the team will be importing the code into their local. Okay, they will import their code into their editor. They will start working on that particular code, and again they will add their changes, and then they will commit their changes, and they will push their changes to a branch dedicated to them. Okay, to a branch dedicated to them. So consider that multiple people will be committing their changes to that particular branch. And then the fourth step is going to be review the code. Probably a lead is the one who will be reviewing the piece of code, whatever they have committed. And at last step, the fifth step, he will be merging the code. Okay, he will be merging the code. So once the code got merged, your repository contains all the individual pieces of a code in that particular repository. But if you observe the third step, as I am an individual, I have only my code. In this situation, I need to take a pull from that repository, so that whatever the latest code is there in that repository, I will be having that particular code in my machine. Okay, perfectly all right. So this is the high level steps that are involved as part of this particular Git, and the configurations that you need to do is navigate to github.com and click on a sign up and create your own account. I already have an account. I'm just clicking on a sign in. Basically, you can create your own account here, and once you logged in here, you do have an option to create a new repository. Okay, we do have an option to create a new repository. And additionally, in order to have a Git in your machine, you can directly download, okay, you can directly, download Git on a Git download on a Windows. If you want it on for a Windows, you can download it as a Windows exe file, double tap it and install it. If you want it on a Mac, basically the operating system, basically the DMG file, it will be downloading, double tap and install it. That's it. Once the Git got installed in your machine, we will be firing a different sets of commands in the terminal. Okay, so the different sets of commands like git hyphen version, all those things. See here, git version, we are getting the desired version of this particular git. And in the next session, what we will be doing is whatever the latest piece of a code that we have used as part of this complete chunk, we will try to commit this code. We will try to maintain a remote repository and we will push this code into that particular remote repository. Okay, perfectly all right. See you again in the next lecture. Thank you.